Would you like to play some football?
And welcome to another edition, a college football playoff edition, a quarterfinal edition of Gridiron and the Gospel, a Faith in College Football podcast. I'm George Schroeder, joined by Todd Unzicker and Jonathan Howe, and we are going to talk about the upcoming quarterfinals here in a couple of days. Believe it or not, we're finally to them, and Michigan has filled its coaching vacancy in an interesting way. We'll talk a little bit about that and a whole lot more. So let's just hop right into it. I could say we could talk about our Christmases, but we all had good Christmases and thankful for that. And here we are recording on Monday morning, and I am ready for some more college football, which let's just go in order. All right. The Cotton Bowl is going to be New Year's Eve. And so as you guys are listening to this, it's coming up right around the corner. Miami, Ohio State. I'm really looking forward to that game. Todd, what are you thinking about when you look at Miami and Ohio State?
We're coming off Julian Sayin, the quarterback for Ohio State. We're coming off his worst game of the year. And I keep asking myself, what's he going to do against that front four of the Hurricanes defense? I think the keys to the game are the two sides of one coin. And that is, if Miami's pass rush can get to Sayin, I think that's his Achilles heel. I think Ohio State's going to have a tough time, and we're going to see the Canes trying to turn back the clock 25 years. Ohio State's offensive line, which I think has really regressed when I kind of look at their body of work over the whole season. But if they can really give Sayin some time, I think the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to get hot just like they did a year ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's still the most talented team in the field. We may be talking here in a
Ohio
minute
State
about Georgia
or Miami.
Ohio State, the most talented team just overall in the field. I think Julian Sain's been really good. The issue that I have with Ohio State all year long is just because of the way the schedule fell, and we talked about this with the big conferences now, they didn't really get tested at all by anybody until Indiana, and then they did not fare well against Indiana. And I think Indiana's really good, but which that tells you absolutely nothing because they're ranked number one. They're the number one seed in this thing. But I have serious questions about them, and I like what you said about their O-line. They ran into their first real significant competition since maybe the Texas game, and it wasn't like they were a juggernaut offensively in the Texas game, right? But it was early in the season, whatever, you won the game. They ran into their first significant competition, and they just didn't look good. And Julian Sayin, for the first time, looked rushed and hurried and didn't look like the quarterback that you'd sort of seen. I think he's really good, but I think that's a fair concern for Ohio State. Jonathan, when you look at these guys, what do you see?
The question I've got coming off the first round playoff game from Miami is, can they score? I mean,
yeah,
they could not put the ball in the end zone against A&M. And I think we'd all agree Ohio State's a much better team and a much better defense than Texas A&M. And I just don't know how Miami puts up the points that they're going to need to put up to move on to the next round.
Well, if their defense plays against the way they did against the Aggies, they might only need to score 10 points again.
Well, and that's fair. That's fair. But
man, it's a different offense than Texas A&M, though.
The question is, what is Carson Beck going to do? We know what Cristobal and that offensive line for Miami wants to do. They want to out-physical and play a 4 quarters game. That's just the way that team is built. If Carson Beck can get hot, I think this team could really make a run, the Hurricanes. The question is, which Hurricanes team are we going to get?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the question, right? I mean, is it going to be a Hurricanes team that can score and move the ball up and down the field, or is it going to be a retread of that A&M game where they just can't do anything, even with big punt returns, big interception return? Like, they had all the opportunities in that game against A&M. They had the big punt return and was it the first half, the big interception return in the second half, and they come away from both of those, I think, with a total of 3 points. And just like, come on, guys.
Let me outline a scenario that would make our missing co-host Dean and Sarah very happy. What if that game was you've got to find a way to get over the hump as a program for the first time in a quarter century game? And what if they found a way, which they certainly did, And what if they're going to be a little bit more like the Miami team we saw at its best this year? They were up and down, right? Just Carson Beck was up and down. They were up and down. The constant was their defense was pretty darn good all year. But what if, having gotten through that, you breathe a sigh of relief, and now you're playing kind of, this is probably not the way we should say this on this podcast, but you're kind of playing with house money, and you can just go out there and fly free. So I just, I, I wonder if, what if we're about to see a freer, better, the Miami team at the top of its game from this 2025 season. Could
Yeah.
you guys
Well,
see
I don't.
that being a thing?
That's possible. I think Miami. I mean, remember in that A&M game, they had a lot of pressure on them from the media, from everything outside, because it was, should they have been in? Should Notre Dame have been in? I mean, there was probably a lot of that mentally for them of, we've got to show that we belong here, right? And
Yeah.
now it's like you said, like they're kind of playing with
And
house
you're on the
money. It's like,
road, tough
yeah,
place to
yeah,
play. Yeah.
exactly. So now you're kind of neutral site again in Texas, but they're in Jerry World. But the pressure's on Ohio State here. I mean, Michigan's all in the headlines. We'll talk about that later. Now they've got to go out for form first round, and they don't want that exit because they're coming off a pretty, I wouldn't say easy title run, but man, they made it look pretty easy last year, especially against Oregon. I mean, so Ryan Day, pressure's on again. What's going to happen there in Miami?
Yeah.
You know,
I have a different take on that. I don't think the pressure's on Ohio State. I think if you're a coach, you just had your last game, you just lost. First tough test, as George just highlighted. Miami is the hot team. I think the pressure's on Miami and Cristobal. And are they really back? Is the U back, or
Also
is this just another letdown? But the Buckeyes are the returning champions, and I think that they're going to go in and play very free. And the question for me is, how can Sayan get the ball to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate? I mean, arguably two of the best players in the country, and they seemed almost invisible in the Big Ten championship. And how can they do against this really elite Miami defense? And then the Carson Beck, what Carson Beck are we going to get? The one that looked like a
That's right.
preseason QB1 and certainly capable of that, or a guy that he just didn't look great against A&M, but he didn't make those mistakes that lost the game for him. And so I think psychology I give to the Buckeyes. They've been there before. I still do not trust Mario Cristobal in-game situations at all. I never will after that fiasco against Georgia Tech 2 years ago. But
Well, it goes back to when he was at Oregon. Just ask the Oregon fans; they'll tell you all about it. But yeah, he needs that guy with the book standing next to him, and he probably has him, and it just doesn't matter.
are we picking games here, George? I mean,
Yeah, I think we should. Just from our extensive pre-show preparation meetings, we probably, we forgot about that. So, well, you want to go through them and then come back and that'll give us a little more time? Okay.
that'd be great.
Yeah, no, listen, I agree. In Miami's front four, and we're about to get into this as we talk about the Orange Bowl, Miami's front four might be the best in the playoff. If it's not, it's this next in this next game. Oregon, Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl, and it's Texas Tech, which would be the best front four. And look, I think there's some other good defensive units and front fours, obviously, and so we can have that argument if you want. But the Cotton Bowl, the Cotton Bowl is New Year's Eve, Miami, Ohio State. The Orange Bowl, or Oregon, Texas Tech, is one I'm really looking forward to in our household, our extended household. We're looking forward to because my two sons are big Oregon fans, just from our time living there. I'm intrigued and have been all year by the Texas Tech gambit, where they have a couple of oil billionaires with a B who are invested in sports. One of them is Cody Campbell, who's kind of become a name, obviously, former played for them 25 years ago. And they say, hey, we're going to go all in on this NIL era. We're just going to go buy a team. They act like they get all upset when people say you bought a team. Well, no, we're just saying that's what you did. Good for you. That's what everybody, by the way, that's what people used to do. They just didn't tell you about it. I'm intrigued by this Texas Tech team because even though they're the 4 seed, I'm not completely convinced that we really believe they're the 4 seed. And by we, I just mean in general. Meanwhile, Oregon has looked really good, but really in the hugest test they had all year at Autzen, they got handled by Indiana. Handled. 1 game blip, whatever. I don't know. I've seen them in person once this year. They're really good. But this might be the game I'm looking forward to the most, just from a neutral perspective just to see what it looks like. Jonathan, when you look at this game, what do you see?
Well, I mean, I agree with all that, and it's just, is Texas Tech for real? This is the question that we're all going to be asking headed into this game. I don't really, I've been on the Oregon train from the beginning of the playoffs, saying that I think of all the non-bye teams, they were the ones that I thought could win it. I mean, obviously they're the 5 seed, but at the same time, they're really good. Like you said, I mean, I would love to see that rematch against Indiana next week in the Peach Bowl. In the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. So I do wonder though, like,
Thanks
and
for
this
the
is one of these
sponsorship
things
there.
where,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, throw that in there. Yeah. Hey, the Lord's chicken. I do wonder though, the early time, does it matter? Does it really matter? Does it make a difference with these guys being a noon kickoff Eastern? That's 9 in Oregon. Does that play? I know they've been down there a few days. They're acclimating, so to
That'll be the
speak, but
key.
still,
They've been down there a
like,
few days, right?
does it make a difference? Is that something to even think about?
I don't know. Todd, what do you think?
It makes a difference. I think that's why they went down. I read that they went down an extra or day early. And so I think acclimation, I trust Dan Lanning and his preparation. And he comes from that Saban Kirby Smart tree where they preach preparation. And there might be a little slow start for the Ducks. I look at two major things here. One, Oregon has been tested. If they need to get in a shootout, they've shown they can win in a shootout. They also show they can run the football and play defense like they did when they were on the road against Iowa in a really gritty game. And I kind of think this game might actually mirror that a little bit more, is kind of what I'm looking at when I see the X's and O's on the field, how they match up. Again, another elite front seven. The biggest thing I'm watching this is kind of a picture of overall college football. Is this going to be the first mercenary team that really makes a run? We've seen this before. What I mean by is a team that goes out and really buys the players. I mean, those billionaires for the Red Raiders and their general manager, James Blanchard, they made no bones about it. They were going to go out and buy the best players available in the portal. And they've had great success. And that's the rules. And you're allowed to do that now. And so, but we've still yet to see a team like that really make a run and win a championship. And can the Red Raiders build that? If they do, I think it's going to continue to accelerate this sort of open free agency we see in college. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I agree
I'll
with
say
that.
that.
Yeah.
I agree with that too, and I think it's what makes it potentially. I hope these games live up to what we hope they can be. But this would be one that would really be fun if it did. By the way, Oregon has had a billionaire with a B that we all know for a long time, and of course they would never have done anything, before it was. But just if when you've seen their facilities, when you've seen all the things he's done for Phil Knight is who I'm talking to about, right, from Nike, what he's done for the program through the years, you measure that in the hundreds of millions of dollars and still like pulling money out of the couch cushions for Phil, which is nice. But yeah, so, if I was going to and we're not ready to pick yet, but I was going to tell you, if I was ready to say, here's the difference in this game, there's a couple of them. One, Oregon's been there, done that. But two, Dante Moore. Dante Moore is really, really, really good, y'all. And man, I appreciate Texas Tech's defense a ton. Baron Morton's does not just thrill me as like the best quarterback in the field here.
And he's been injured the last half of the season.
Right. He's played fine on and off, but I don't know that he's the difference maker. Do you need that guy? I don't know. Maybe not. We've seen teams win without difference makers at quarterbacks, but it sure helps to have one. So, man, I think it'll be that's one I'm looking forward to. So that's the Orange Bowl, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central kickoff. And one other thing, I do think, yeah, Dan Lanning can talk about Oregon going down a day early to acclimate for what would be a 9 a.m. Pacific kickoff. I think as a former resident of Eugene, it's just anytime you get a chance to go to Miami and leave the cold rain during the wintertime, you leave as early as you can and you stay as long as you can. As a former resident of Eugene, and I know friends back in Eugene who listen to the podcast and are not related to me, believe it or not, and so they know what I'm talking about, even as they're kind of like ready to punch the speaker. So, all right, Alabama, Indiana in the Rose Bowl, the best venue, at least on New Year's Day, in my opinion, in college sports on any day is the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day with the sun setting on the San Gabriels and just all of that. We were talking about that in our extensive pre-show preparation meeting. And Alabama, Indiana is not really a matchup that rolls easily off my tongue. I just want to let you guys know that, especially when you say in the Rose Bowl.
Yes. And
For a
then
variety of
Alabama's
reasons.
the 9 seed and Indiana's the 1.
Right. Indiana's the one, and you're like, can this Alabama team, can they really challenge this Indiana team? It's like,
With a
what
Heisman
are we
winner
doing
from
here?
Indiana.
Yeah, what are we doing here? And so, in other words, this is not your big brother's college football playoff. This is 2025 college football playoff, or 2026 time we get to the Rose Bowl. Alabama, credit to the Crimson Tide. They essentially reversed what happened in Tuscaloosa by going and beating Oklahoma in Oklahoma, and played a gritty game, got a couple of breaks, and then made the most of them. Very similar to what Oklahoma did on the other end of things in November in Tuscaloosa. I don't know, and this is so hard for me to say, that anything I saw in Norman in the first round tells me that Alabama team can go make a run in the playoff. Todd, tell me if you agree or why I'm wrong.
Yeah, they certainly look limited to. I wouldn't call them a team that I'm going to say that they're going to make a run, but they're still Alabama football. They're built for this. I think that DeBoer has been coaching and playing the players playing with a chip on the shoulder a little bit of everyone's doubting him. He's not Saban. They're not the same Bama. All of that. They seem to
Right.
be rising to the occasion in this. The other one is a little bit with the Texas Tech factor. You know, it is just hard for me to look and say Alabama versus Indiana and not think that there's some psychological edge there. What is Mendoza and Zignetti and company going to do when they're going up against the juggernaut that is the Crimson Tide? And when Crimson Tide is on a down year and they're still playing in the quarterfinals, it shows you that's just what they've earned there. From an X's and O standpoint, I think Alabama's defense is elite. I think that they can play, and I think they're going to give Indiana fits like they have not seen this season. The flip side is which Ty Simpson are we going to get? The one that looked like a Heisman favorite at the first half of the year? He has got to figure out a way to get the ball into Horton's hands and Bernard's. And where has Ryan Williams been? I keep
He
waiting
just
for
drops
the
the
game.
ball. Yeah.
Yes. I keep waiting if Ryan Williams, can wake up and we can see the same Ryan Williams that we saw last year. I think Alabama's got a great shot, and I don't think it would shock a lot of people for the Crimson Tide to win. Can they get on a roll, win the whole thing? I'm not there yet, although that Oklahoma, that showed a team that is mentally prepared to make a run. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean,
Jonathan,
I think you nailed it, Todd. I mean, it's what is Simpson going to do? Which Simpson's going to show up? I don't know. And I think that's the key right there. If he shows up, has a good game, I think we could be in for something there and something special. Because, at the end of the day, Alabama's kind of been there, done that a few times. And, I don't think the moment will be too big for them. And, I think you're right about the chip on the shoulder. So I
He has
agree
to
with
play well
basically
because they
everything.
have no run game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So I agree with everything Todd said. I mean, what's weird about all this talk about the new NIL and the format and everything, we could wind up having a semifinal of Oregon, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. Welcome to
Right.
2015. I mean,
Right.
okay. But
look, so this is
will
no
we? I
slight
don't
to
know.
Alabama. This is no slight to Alabama, and I'm certainly not going to say anything bad about Oregon because I'm sitting in my older son's apartment right now, and he might come
Throw you
unglued.
out.
But,
Yeah.
huh?
He'll throw dad out.
Throw you out. Yeah.
Yeah, he might. Like you can do the rest of this from outside, where finally the weather turned and it's now 28 degrees instead of 88 degrees. So, but I would love to see Texas Tech and Indiana in that Final Four. That would be tremendous because it would show kind of the new world of parity. We know parity has come to college football. It really has. And because, first of all, even the best teams, the Ohio States, the Georgias, and by that I mean the most talented teams are not always the best teams. They don't have as much talent. The Alabamas, they don't have as much talent. You're not able to stockpile it because you can go and play somewhere else. And people are going and playing other places. But if it ends up being kind of the same old guys, that to me is a missed opportunity. Now, will there be others opportunities? Yeah, there's going to be another Texas Tech. Might even be Texas Tech. There's going to be another Indiana. Might be Indiana. There are going to be others like that. But this is a prime opportunity. And when you're Indiana and you're the number 1 seed, don't go lay an egg like what happened to Oregon. Now they ran into a buzzsaw in that Ohio State team last year. But don't go lay an egg. So, uh, man, I'm just going to tell you, I think Mendoza is amazingly good. He makes plays. I think they are a whole lot more talented than I'm about to sound like I'm giving them credit for, because but I think it might be the best, potentially the best coached team. That sounds like I'm saying they're gritty, gutty, and they do everything right, but they're not as talented. That's not what I mean. I'm not talking about the slot receiver in the NFL. That's not what I'm talking about. Who runs the perfect routes. I'm saying they remind me of when Bill Snyder really got K-State going, and they had a lot of talent, and they were always in the right place at the right time. So that's what they remind me of. Now, that seems like a slight too, but Kansas State went a couple of years where they were up at the top of the polls. So that's unfair. I'm not trying to compare them to a typical Kansas State team, which was gritty, gutty, and better coached than your team. I'm saying they're talented, and they're going to be at least as well coached as anybody you've faced all year. They're going to be in the right place at the right time. They're going to know what Ty Simpson is looking to do on this play, from this formation, in this down and distance, and they're going to fit that right. And that's going to make it a lot harder. And they're going to need Alabama to make some plays, just individuals who maybe are better. We'll see. I don't know. That'll be an interesting pick when we get to it. So,
Hey,
Ole Miss,
before we
Georgia.
move on,
ahead.
because you got me all excited talking about the San Gabriel Mountains. George, I know you've done it a lot more than I have, but I just got to tell you, I've been to Augusta National, and covering the Rose Bowl game is like walking in there was like walking into Augusta National. It was Chick-fil-A customer service. That's our second time mentioning Christian Chicken. But it really was just even the drive up.
Should we give them the Gmail if they want to
Yeah, I know.
reach
Yeah,
out to us?
sponsorships are available.
Even the drive
take
up in
payment
the
in
press
nuggets.
in the press bus, that drive up through the mountains was just gorgeous. And man, I got to cover one of maybe the greatest playoff game in the double overtime.
I still think it is probably in semi.
When Georgia came back from Oklahoma was up 17 points, and it was a double overtime. But that was just great. What was your favorite? What do you remember most about covering that, George?
Well, I've been able to cover and blessed to cover. I'd have to go back and count 6 or 8 of them at just different times. I mean, just different.
You didn't say 6, 7?
I intentionally did
Missed
not
an opportunity
say 6,
there.
7. Those of you who are not on YouTube just missed out. So there you go. And you can find us on YouTube, by the way. Just search Gridiron and the Gospel. But we know most of you guys listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. I think that's a good way to put it. I've not been to Augusta National, so I wish I had been. But envisioning kind of what that would be like, the entire ambiance of parking on a golf course, which that sounds weird, but you just got to understand it. This sort of crisp Southern California wintertime air, and you walk into this 100-plus-year-old stadium with these narrow portals that go into the bowl. And if you get the opportunity and you go early enough, you want to walk right through one of those narrow portals, and then suddenly you're in this unbelievable bowl, and the backdrop is the San Gabriel Mountains. And then if you have the opportunity to be there in the right spots at the time that the sun does start to set, it's a magical venue. Now, I've also been there for UCLA regular season games, and it really does. It seats about 100,000.
Does
something
pale
like
in comparison, right?
Yeah, and so when there's 38,000 people in there, and they're somewhat interested, but some of them thought it was a Dodgers game, and they pulled out the beach balls and they're popping them back and forth to each other, it doesn't have the same ambiance. But on New Year's Day, at that time, when it's the Rose Bowl game, I don't think there's a better venue in the entire college sports world. And maybe not, we could go beyond that, but I don't think there's a better venue. And I know, Todd, you like the game affectionately known as the cocktail party, and I've covered a bunch of the Red River, whatever we're calling it this week, a Red River shootout. Those things are tremendous. And some of the games, when it's a big rivalry game like the Iron Bowl at either place, or Michigan, Ohio State, or whatever, those things are amazing too. But there is nothing like that. Listeners, if you ever have the chance to go to the Rose Bowl game because your team's playing, or even if it's not, you ought to go. It's amazing.
I am
It's
mad
amazing.
about the start time, though, George. It's too early.
What? Yeah, so it's an 11
1
a.m.
P
Central. No, 1 p.m. Sorry, 1 p.m. Pacific. So
Yeah.
what that means is the sun will set in what, the third quarter,
No, I mean,
late third
probably
quarter.
4th quarter. I mean, it'll be close to 5 or after.
That's fair. Yeah,
So
you're
they're
right.
gonna
That's
need,
right.
like, we need another double overtime banger. That'd be awesome,
That could
by the way.
happen. Hey,
Give me double
now
overtime with
see,
Alabama
Sign
and
me up for
Indiana in
that.
the Rose Bowl. Sign me up right
now
now.
I'm going to go down a rabbit trail. Shane Beamer was on the Georgia staff that day. Shortly after that, and Georgia came back and beat Oklahoma in a tremendous double overtime game after being down 17 late in the first half and unable to stop Oklahoma. It didn't look good for Georgia. And Oklahoma scores late in the first half, and then kicks, and they decide to squib kick instead of kicking deep. And Georgia recovered, or fielded the kick, closer to midfield than probably they would have been unless they had unleashed a long return on a deep kick. And then they had not let Fromm loose at all, but he hit a sideline route or something like that, and hit another route. And the next thing you know, they kicked a long field goal. Right, Todd, you would know all of that. And they went in down 14, but you'd have thought they were up 14 just based on how they seemed to feel. So Shane Beamer was on that Georgia staff, and then Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma hired him to the Oklahoma staff. And I had a chance to go to lunch with him after he'd gone to the Oklahoma staff, and that game came up because of his now on the other side. And he said it felt like a morgue on the sidelines until the kick, the field goal. And then it truly felt like in the locker room, like they were even or ahead. And he said he felt like everything changed based on that. And that what he was saying, not saying, was, I don't know why Lincoln squibbed the kick. Because had you kicked them down, this is what Shane Beamer was saying. If you kick them and they get the ball at the 20 or the 25, they're going to play conservative based on what they had been letting Fromm do. And even if he hits the sideline route, you're now at the 35. You're not closing in on field goal range. And he said that difference of the 3 points made all the difference in the world. Now, a lot of things happened in that second half, right? And in the 2 overtimes. But I just always thought that was interesting from sort of a coach's perspective. So,
all right, my coach's
anyway,
story from that Rose Bowl,
yeah.
my coaches. So I've been retired out of, I've shared this before, left the business, became a missionary, got into ministry. And my good friend, Roddy Nabolsi, the publisher.
Retired. That's what we call that. Retired.
Right. Roddy Nabolsi from UGA Sports with Rivals.com and On3. He said, yeah, come on out, come help us. And I was just thrilled to do this. So after the game's over, was standing there with all my old press buddies, all the Georgia beat writers, and Mark Schlabach and Chip Towers and Anthony Dasher, Mark Weiser. We're all standing there right outside the locker room. We're hearing all the celebrating going on, and the door opens and we're about to go in. And Kirby Smart comes walking out first, and I'm standing right behind Schlabach. We're about to go in, and he kind of gives Schlabach a quick hug. And then he all of a sudden just sort of hugs me, stops, pulls back, looks at me and goes, Unzicker, what are you doing here? I heard you became a priest or something. And I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And so I said, great game, coach. And so that was me reconnecting with Kirby Smart in a matter of 3 seconds there at that Rose Bowl.
You didn't talk to him about the priesthood of the believer at that point? That was not
I
where
did not
went.
get into a big theological discussion with him.
Second half of the show here. Second half of the show.
Yeah, that's right. I love it, man. That's so good. So, all right. Well, let's go to Georgia now. Sugar Bowl. Ole Miss, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. That'll be the nightcap on New Year's Day. Ole Miss, Georgia. Hey, kudos to Ole Miss for the win. I mean, they're going to play. They played Tulane, but obviously a lot of things happened with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, heading off to Baton Rouge, and just a lot of turmoil around the program. And it did not look like it when they hosted Tulane. Now, it was Tulane. It looked like a September game, which, by the way, they had already played against Tulane. They looked like they hadn't skipped a beat, losing the coach and some of the coaching staff and some of the upheaval that had been going on around the program. Pete Golding's first game was a tremendous success. That's also the one you want to be your first game. But now they go in against a Georgia team that didn't look great for most of the year, but appeared to round into shape near the end of the year, and suddenly looks like some of the Georgia teams we've seen in the recent past. And so I'm real interested to see what you guys think about that game. And so I guess I'll start with you, Jonathan, because you're on the good end of the Lane Kiffin train as an LSU guy. So you think that was all fine and good.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm happy to welcome in the Pete Golding era at Ole Miss. Like, I don't know what really to expect from Ole Miss in this game. I don't think we learned a lot in the Tulane game. I mean, they beat the brakes off of Tulane like everybody thought they would. The offense looked good. Defense held Tulane to like 10 points or whatever it was, 41-10, I think was the final. And 41-10. I just don't know what to expect from Ole Miss against Georgia. To me, this is the toughest one to pick because Ole Miss, if it gets into a shootout, Ole Miss can play that game. But the question is, can they stop Georgia? And, Todd is, our resident Georgia expert here. He'll have a lot more to say about that. But that's the question. I think Ole Miss has got to be able to get to a high scoring game. I think favors Ole Miss here more than Georgia. But I don't know if Ole Miss can do that against Georgia's defense.
Well, they scored didn't they score touchdowns on 5 consecutive possessions, or was it points on 5 consecutive possessions? And
Touchdown.
Athens, yeah. And then Georgia.
But can you do it now?
No, I think
Georgia's a better team now. I think Georgia's gotten better all year long. And with all the upheaval and everything going on at Ole Miss, and just coaches are trying to do 2 different things, and players, thinking about declaring for the portal the next day or whatever. Can you do it now?
That's it. Todd, you've got a closer finger on the pulse of Georgia than anybody else podcasting right now. And I don't mean this podcast. I mean most podcasts.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that, but I would definitely say this is going to be a different game than what we saw in Athens early in the season.
Georgia didn't know who it was yet, I don't think. So
right.
Go ahead.
I mean, that game, Georgia had the second youngest team in the SEC, the team with the least amount of returning production. You could tell that was a team that was up and down in that early part of the year. Had to score 17 straight points to come from a 9-point deficit in the fourth quarter at home to beat Ole Miss. So Ole Miss has got the talent to play. I think what we're just going to have to keep an eye on is that Georgia's defense is really much improved. Glenn Schumann, the defensive coordinator, was asked a few days ago at the press day for the Sugar Bowl, was this the game? He kind of hedged his bets a little bit, didn't say that, but most fans, most media can look, and Georgia's defense played incredibly well the second half of that Ole Miss game and through the most part of the rest of the season. And it was really right there where you could see that defense grow up. If that defense shows up again, and they're fighting some injuries, that's what I'm going to keep an eye on here. Gabe Harris, starting defensive end, who's really come on and looked like that defensive player that Georgia's been known for the last 5 or 6 years. He has got a turf toe issue. We're not sure that he's going to be able to play. And then Ole Miss's tailback, Kewan Lacey, just yesterday, they were incredibly mum on whether he'll play or not. And so this time of year, he's seeing those impact players, what's going to happen there. But you got to kind of think that Georgia lost in the quarterfinals last year. If you remember, in this game against Notre Dame, Georgia players talking about the bad taste in their mouth. You got to think teams can get up when they have a coaching change for usually that first game. What will happen as things get going? And so I think you've got to kind of look at the intangibles swinging Georgia's way. I just think that this game is going to play out a lot differently than the first time.
Yeah, I do too. Kudos to Ole Miss again for winning the first round game, which, you should win against Tulane. But because given everything that has happened in and around Oxford over the last 6 weeks or whatever, and I guess it's not quite that long, but it just feels like it was a long time ago. But this Georgia team, I don't know if I'm ready to predict them to win the national title at this moment, but I do think they're a better team than when they played Ole Miss. I think that's clear. I don't think Ole Miss is necessarily a lesser team than it was, but I don't know that it's improved and grown, coaching changes and turmoil and upheaval aside. But this Georgia team is clearly a different team. I think we saw that all along. And so I would not think you're going to see Ole Miss score 5 consecutive touchdowns. I don't think we're going to see that kind of game. If Ole Miss finds a way to win it, it'll be a different type of situation, I think. So I think this Georgia team win. Here we are. I'm starting to pick them, so I shouldn't have done that. But I agree with that analysis.
We can pick, George. We've just gone through all 4
it's
now.
time now. Yep.
That's true. Well, let's start
It's
with
time.
Sugar Bowl, and then we'll work our way back. I'm going with Georgia. I don't know that I would have gone with Ole Miss, even if Lane were. In fact, I wouldn't, even if Lane were still in charge, because I just think Georgia's better and has gotten better. But I think given everything on both sides, that this is a fairly easy pick for me, and not all of these will be. Georgia is who I'm going with. Jonathan.
Yeah, I said this is one of the harder ones for me. It's just because I don't know if will Georgia's defense, will the layoff, and that's something we haven't talked about either, is the layoff with these teams that had to buy. I mean, we saw it last year that a lot of those teams kind of struggled. And I mean, if Ole Miss comes out and jumps on them early,
That's a good point. Yeah.
who knows? I still think Georgia wins the game, but I see a lot of different paths for Ole Miss to win this, especially if it gets high scoring. Like I said, if Georgia's defense that was there the second half of the season doesn't show up, it could be a long night for the Dogs. But I still think Georgia wins.
Gunnar Stockton 1 year ago at this game was making his first career start. I think Gunnar has really shown to be a
Good point,
gamer and
too.
can get it done with his efficiency, leads the nation in passing efficiency, or has been up there all year, and he can also beat you with your legs. And I think the Bulldogs have certainly a bad taste that they want to eradicate, and so I think the Bulldogs are gonna win and win convincingly. Not a blowout, but control the clock and ground and pound and play that kind of Kirby Smart football that we've been seeing out of the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and the fact that they want to eradicate a bad taste really, when you use big words like that, it makes me think, wow, he definitely left being a sports writer and became a pastor. So I love that. Eradicate the bad taste. You don't just want to get rid of it; you want to eradicate it. I like that. So, all right, so we're all on Georgia. Hopefully, we'll go opposite sides on some of these. We're going backwards chronologically. The Rose Bowl out in Pasadena, Alabama, Indiana, the 9 seed Alabama versus the 1 seed Indiana. And Todd, we'll start with you, and then we'll kind of roll through there.
Yeah, this is tough. I love everything about Fernando Mendoza. I love what Kurt Signetti has done at Indiana. He has epitomized what the new era of college football looks like, that we're even having this conversation of Indiana, Alabama, and the Rose Bowl. But I think the clock is going to strike midnight and the coach is going to turn back into a pumpkin. I have got to go with the Crimson
Okay.
Tide.
Not
in
Signetti.
this.
He means the coach. Not
Yeah, the coach, the Cinderella,
Thank you.
not
I was
Signetti.
like, wow, okay.
That was a bad analogy.
Because
I was trying
Signetti's
really
really angry right now after having
Yeah.
heard that. Google him.
I wouldn't want him mad at me, that's for sure. But we
No.
welcome if Kurt Signetti is listening. He can prove us wrong. But when I look at a game like this, Alabama has been there. I think they're playing with the chip on their shoulder. Both teams are talented. Hard to find a weakness with Indiana, but I think the ceiling for the Crimson Tide can be much higher. We've seen it at times, and I think we're going to see that in the Rose Bowl.
Jonathan,
I'm with Todd here.
Wow.
I mean,
you guys
I know
have been
you were
dipped
saying,
in the
I
South
hope-
a little too long, man.
Well, maybe so. SEC, it just means more a bias.
It does.
But but
I'm glad
I'm
I
with
didn't
Todd.
say that.
I just think the layoff hurts Indiana. They're coming off a hugely
Yeah.
emotional Big 12 or Big 10 title win.
Right.
I
You
mean,
got the Heisman winner. Everybody's fat and
yeah, I
happy.
mean, it just
Yeah, no, I get
they're
you.
prone for a letdown.
Yep.
So who knows?
I think that's
But
fair.
I'm with Todd.
I think that's fair. Look, just to be contrarian, I didn't think much of that.
To be contrarian and pick the 1 seed here.
Yeah. But you guys understand this, right? It's Indiana. It's still hard for me to say. And I know I said that like week after week after week on the podcast, but you guys know, the listeners know what I'm talking about. And y'all do too. I'm just going to say this. That was not a great Oklahoma team. It's not a great Alabama team. And Alabama is not as close to the Alabamas. Oklahoma's like an inverse of what Lincoln Riley used to put out there on the field, right? It's like really
There's a
good
defense
elite
there.
defense, right? And their offense is like an old jalopy that's just misfiring, right? When it used to be the other way around. But I'm just saying neither one of those teams look like a team that I think can win it. And Alabama, to its credit, won the game. But I didn't see anything in there that made me think, when I look at all these playoff teams, wow, the winner of this game can keep going. Now, I know we've kind of hit on that, and both of you guys have hit on that a little bit too. And so maybe Alabama's going to get it going. Indiana's been there a year ago. And so this is not like we're just happy to be there, the number 16 seed in the NCAA tournament type of thing. Woo! It didn't like that. It's not the surprise, team. We were all surprised they're the 1 seed, I guess. I just think this is a different Indiana team than it was a year ago. The layoff concerns me. But I'm going with Indiana to keep this story going because I think they're more than a cute little story. So I'll just pick Indiana and we'll go from there. Now, I'm concerned about the layoff and I'm concerned about what happens to Heisman winners when they get fat and happy on the circuit, the sort of the celebration award circuit. So, but it is what it is. All right, Orange Bowl, Oregon, Texas Tech. I'll start and then I'll ask Jonathan. We'll just kind of go back and forth. I can't pick against the Ducks or I will not be allowed back in this apartment. And so, as much as I like Texas Tech, I think that Oregon team is really talented. I think they've got a chip on their shoulder from having played very poorly, and I think Indiana made them play very poorly in Autzen in that loss earlier in the year to Indiana. And I think they've gotten better. And so I'm going to go with Oregon. I would love to see Texas Tech win for all the reasons we talked about before, but I like Oregon's offense is a lot more confident in Oregon's offense than I am in Texas Tech's offense. So, Jonathan, what do you think? Oh, he's got the O up. Yeah.
Yeah, give me that.
That's it. Yeah.
I have zero faith in Texas Tech. It's the Big 12. I'm sorry. Give me Oregon.
Wow.
I'm not even going to expound. Like, it's just nothing
That
about.
makes me want to pick Tech. Just
Yeah,
the
I
way
know,
you said
I
that.
know.
Just
But
dripping with
it's
contempt.
nothing about Texas Tech gives me confidence to beat Oregon. So I know good defense, solid line. I mean, like they're a
Not
good
that
team, but like
Pop-Tarts Bowl with BYU and Georgia Tech, that didn't give you confidence in the
no,
upper
it did
echelon
not.
Big 12 team?
Not at all.
By the way, was that great TV? I can't believe we've made
It
it
was great.
25 minutes and
We'll
we have
talk
not
about that
talked about
later.
the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
We're going to talk about the Pop-Tarts. We're going to get there
Yeah, but
this much.
I mean, they're not going to have a quarterback with a strong safety number throwing balls from Oregon. So give me Oregon all day long on this one. This is the easiest pick of the 4 for me.
All right.
Wow.
Todd.
Well, this is the toughest one because I think defense travels.
4
And
versus 5.
I love Texas Tech and their defense. I think that I'm a believer in them, but I'm not in a believer still yet till they prove me wrong in a team that just goes out and buys the best players. I think Oregon is built for the long haul. They've been tested. And I think Dante Moore has a lot to prove. He's made his way to the top of Mel Kiper's big board for the NFL draft. And I think this will be a great test for him going up against that defense. And I look for him to continue what he looked hot, scoring, leading the Ducks to touchdowns on their first 5 against James Madison. I think that was a good tune-up for him. And give me Dan Lanning and the Ducks down there in the Orange Bowl. And after they've been enjoying Miami for an extra day.
You talk about September buy games, BUY games. That was essentially a BYE game for Oregon, JMU. Just, yeah. But it does shake off the rust, knocks the rust off, which that'll be one of the other questions with all of these, teams that had the buy into the bowl games, so into the quarters. So, all right. So that's where we are on that one. And then lastly, the first game, New Year's Eve, Miami, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And we'll just go backwards in order again. Todd, who do you got?
All right, this one was tough. Another tough one. And I'm so glad that Dean is not here because he knows I want to pick the Canes. I think
Because we love you, Dean.
College football is better when the Canes are at the top. I really do like Miami. I actually think when Miami's hot, this is why I'm scared. When Miami's hot, they are the most dangerous team to face in this. But I've got to go with experience. I've got to go with the Buckeyes, Ryan Day. They proved it last year when they were left for dead, and they had the Buckeye faithful out on his front porch with pitchforks and torches about a year ago at this time, and they got hot. I think they could do it again, and I don't trust Cristobal in tight game situations. And I'll make Gabe McGann, who is one of our leaders with NC Baptist. He'll be very proud and happy, along with Hannah Nelson. And they're on our staff for their big Buckeyes. So we got a whole bunch of Buckeyes on our staff. And
Jonathan drops Chick-fil-A references, and you're dropping Buckeye fan references from the NC Baptist. I love it.
Yep, right there. So I'll make the Carey staff most of them happy, and I'll go with the Buckeyes, show their experience in beating the Canes.
Jonathan, your thoughts?
Sorry, Dean. I don't have the confidence in Miami's offense after last week. Sorry. It just the A&M game. I just don't see how you put up points against Ohio State, and I think it's going to be a long day for Miami.
And we haven't mentioned Caleb
Yeah,
Downs. I mean, probably the best defender. He's going to be in the draft, and Carson Beck has been suspect, and so
right. Listen, I'll go ahead and dot the I just to do that. How about that? That was good. I like that.
Yeah.
Just to make it all three of us on the same page here. I love that Miami broke through. I think Miami could give them a really good game. This Ohio State team, I think, is the most talented team in the field. Doesn't mean they're the best team. Doesn't mean they're going to win the whole thing. But I think they're the most talented team. If you start looking position group by position group, Julian Sand has been really good all year. He wasn't as good against Indiana, but he wasn't terrible. And I think, you're talking about a Heisman finalist, right? And you're right, their defense is good. Ohio State is still Ohio State in a lot of ways. And so I would love for Miami to win it. I think it would make for a happier Dean and Sarah and a better podcast, post quarters, but it's hard for me to pick them. So I'm going Ohio State too. So that's
after all of us picking Ohio State, I'd be afraid of that podcast after a Miami win with Dean on here. We'd never hear the end of it.
Well, you're assuming that Dean listens to the podcast when he's not on.
That'll make for
right?
good TV though, right?
No, it will. It'll be good TV. We'll point people to the YouTube for that, right? Because who knows what kind of props he'll bring. So you just never know.
Like an amateur.
All right, we've been going a long time here. I do want to talk real quick. The Pop-Tarts Bowl is the best. It's what bowl games ought to be in the 21st century or the playoff era. And if you can come up with that shtick, or the Duke's Mayo Bowl, right, where to a lesser extent, where you dump the mayonnaise on the coach and he agrees to it, it makes me think of when you remember when they would. What's the name of the opening the season? It's the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic or whatever they call it in Atlanta, right? It's been, and when you would see Nick Saban put that dumb looking leather helmet on his head, and Nick Saban would have that sort of, I can't believe I'm doing this sort of wry look on his face. Anytime you have that kind of a shtick for a bowl game, the Pop-Tarts Bowl to me, and they had two ranked teams too, right?
Yeah.
That helps.
But a great game.
Bowl,
great game.
A fantastic game.
A great game.
Literally
but it's what
to
bowl
the last
games
play,
are supposed
right?
to be.
I mean, yeah.
And I do think there's a place for bowls. This is for another podcast. There's a place for bowls in this sort of era, but it's going to involve them coming up with creative ways to give NIL chunks to players to want to play in it. But the Pop-Tarts Bowl has figured it out. And somebody should, I would just say this, the marketing team at the Pop-Tarts Bowl is a national treasure.
Yeah.
And we need to preserve them and protect them.
Like created this bowl marketing group or whatever to like experimentally try this thing, and it has just blown up. Like every other bowl game out there should be hiring them to market their bowl. Like Duke's Mayo was kind of the first one out there, but it's mayonnaise, and that's not really something for everybody.
No, none of us want to have mayonnaise dumped on us, but we like
the
watching the
Pop-Tarts
coach
thing.
get it.
Everybody
all in
wants to
on
watch mayonnaise getting dumped on a coach.
That's true.
I mean, that's
I was
right.
disappointed that they didn't dump the Bush's baked beans on the coach. They were just eating
But they were
spoonfuls out of his
eating it
vat, which
out
is
of
nasty.
the
was
thing
so
with a
nasty.
ladle. It's like,
Oh, that was awful.
no,
I
don't do
wanted
that.
some.
The last
it
guy
made
just
me want
ate
to
out
go
of it.
fire up some Bush's baked beans.
No,
Although,
I mean,
Bush's baked
we're
beans
Bush's
at a
baked
Boca
beans house,
Raton.
but I don't want to eat out of that.
I don't think of Bush's baked beans at the beach. Like that. That's where we need to
That's
start.
fair.
Like hooking these things up. We've talked a lot about the marketing side. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but the amount of chippiness in these bowl games and the competitive nature, and then watching the celebrations after the bowl game's over. Tell me bowl games do not matter. When someone says that, it shows that they have not played football. They have not been around athletes who play football. For most of these players, it's their last chance to ever put
We
on
talk about
the
the
uniform and the
opt-outs.
helmet. Yes,
But college
shame
football
on-
players play college football because they like to play college football.
That's right. And shame
That's why they
on
play.
those teams that opted out, and no sympathy for me on that. And good for teams
All right.
that wanted to be in a bowl game.
Can I give
Did
you
you see
one?
one
Go
more
ahead.
question? Did y'all see the Fresno State coach's wife, her tweet after the Snoop Bowl?
I wasn't sure where you're going with that, so thank you.
Sorry, Matt Ince, Matt Ince's wife, tweeted after and it's still Twitter, by the way, tweeted after the Snoop Dogg Bowl that the Fresno State Bulldogs won. Miami of Ohio did not show up at all, or Ohio, whoever it was, did not show up for that game. But she tweeted Matt getting handed a trophy by Snoop Dogg, what has life come to, or something like that. She was just like, it's so surreal. My husband is out here getting handed a trophy for a bowl game from Snoop Dogg.
Yeah,
And
it's just
that's good marketing.
yeah, that's right. All right, one thing though, can I just say that I love the bad boy mowers are in the bowl sponsorship business, but the bad boy mowers pinstripe bowl at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, where nobody even knows
Nobody
what a
has a yard.
zero-turn mower is because there's no grass to mow other than at Yankee Stadium, right? But I'm just saying, outside of the friendly confines, I guess that's not Yankee Stadium, but outside the confines of Yankee Stadium, it's like that probably ain't it. I mean, that should be like in Charlotte, right? Where everybody wants to.
There was a great sign at that stadium that said, Dabo thinks the Mets play here.
Yes,
and
it was so great.
That made me laugh. I think Jonathan.
So it seemed like that might be the case. We did not talk about Penn State Clemson. We're not going to talk about Penn State Clemson, but keep an eye on Clemson, just because that atmosphere is not great around Dabo right now as they head into the offseason after that loss and just the way they played.
Here's a question for you. Penn State and Clemson played. I think that game was on the same day as BYU Georgia Tech, and I didn't watch but 30 seconds of that Penn State game. It was on in the background. I was locked in to the Pop-Tarts Bowl because it just, for some reason, that bowl felt like a bigger deal than Penn State and Clemson, two traditional blue bloods, maybe. That may be a little much for Clemson, but you know what I mean.
Penn State is, and Clemson
much more than BYU and
there.
Georgia Tech, but
right. No, that's right.
But nobody was hardly anybody was paying attention to that Penn State game. But that's what bowl marketing will do for you, because people were
the marketing has changed how we look at the bowls. It was always the Citrus Bowl was always that best bowl outside of kind of the New Year's, the Citrus Bowl was really up there. The Peach is elevated. The Peach is now elevated into that echelon, and the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is kind of was always the forerunner to the Citrus Bowl, has really overtaken that. It shows what great marketing can do, and have some fun with it. I think that's the important part, is make it fun for the fans, make it fun for the viewers. And I am for all the bowl games we can get, because this past Saturday was our last Saturday of college football until August 29th, 2026. And so
when you texted us that, it was really disappointing.
Yeah, thanks for bringing the room down,
discouraging.
Todd. I'll be interested to see in 2027 the new stadium down the street from me opens here in Nashville.
And does that do anything to the Music City Bowl?
What will the Music City Bowl do to be in that playoff rotation? Nashville, it's the hot town. Will they?
Well,
here's
what they got going
there?
for them. It's a covered stadium, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the new game.
That
and
changes
so
everything.
Whether the Music City Bowl can find its way elevated, that's hard for me to see them getting into the CFP bowl slots. But what you are going to see is Nashville make legitimate, serious bids and become a host site for the national title game. That's clearly going to happen, regardless of whatever might or might happen with you.
They need to get Dolly Parton to get some of that marketing magic in there, and some of the
Dolly
fun.
Parton
And I guarantee you, the Music City Bowl. Hey, if Snoop can do it, why can't Dolly do it?
You get?
She's got a hotel that's opening downtown in a couple of years, so we'll see.
I got a thought. If you could just get a certain giant pop star to go back to her roots and present and it could be the Music City Bowl presented by Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Taylor Kelce.
Yeah, however that works, then that would work. But you got to go even bigger on the Music City thing of it. That's what you got to do. Just see what happens.
By the way, I have so much fun messing with my daughter and calling Taylor Swift Travis Kelce's girlfriend, and telling her that nobody ever heard of her until Travis Kelce came along.
Who?
Yeah, I say it with such sincerity, and she falls for it
Who's
every
Travis
time.
Kelce?
All right, real quick. We tease this at the top. Michigan found its coach. It's not Kalen DeBoer, and that might have something to do with what happened late in the first half in Norman. It might not have something to do with what happened late in the first half against Norman, but Alabama's still playing. Kalen DeBoer is still the Alabama Crimson Tide coach. Whether there was anything to do with that was ever a thing or not, who knows? But they hired Kyle Whittingham, who had just stepped away kind of to allow the coach in waiting, Morgan Scalley, to move up at Utah. But he had made a point to say, not retiring, just stepping away. He's 66. And
You say
I
that
actually
like it's
think,
old, George.
well, it feels
I'm a lot
like
closer
it
to
might
that
be
these days than I wanted to be, but yeah.
That's true. That happens to all of us, right? But I mean, all I'm saying is that is old to get hired somewhere, especially at Michigan. So it feels like a bridge hire to me because it clearly is. But if he goes 4 or 5 years, man, I'm actually super excited about this hire because I think he's one of the best coaches in the game. Utah has been routinely overlooked and underrated, and they're a bring a lunch pail team program because of him. And that is what Michigan is when it's at its best, only with a higher level of player. And so I actually think this has a chance to be really good. And then stability, he's coached there 20 plus years at Utah without really a hint of real scandal. And so that's one of the things that Michigan really needed too. So I'm interested to hear y'all's takes on Whittingham to Michigan. I think it's a completely out of the blue, while okay, but now that I think about it, I think it actually makes some sense for a 4 or 5 year period.
Yeah. So
Thoughts?
I'm going to put this in the same kind of vein as Brian Kelly to LSU and how bad a fit that was. I think this is like the 180 of that. Like what LSU need. LSU should never have hired Brian Kelly. It was a terrible fit, it was bad. Everything about it. It was bad when it started and got worse. I think the opposite is this one. I think it is a confusing fit because like he doesn't really fit the Michigan persona, I think, of the last few coaches they've had, but they needed this. They needed to turn it. They needed it's not a, I say bad is not the right word there. It's a good thing, I think, long term for them. I think in 5 years that program's going to be drastically better and drastically different than what it is right now, and they need that. And college football needs that for Michigan and to not be what they've been the last few years with all the scandals and everything that is constantly going on there. So I think, I feel like he's kind of like the West Coast Mark Richt. Does that make sense? Todd will get that reference probably, where he's done everything right, just never won the big thing. But like at the same time, like there was never a question about the program at Utah, and he wins games. So like it's a good hire. I think it's like the best possible hire they could have had, because there was rumors that they were talking to Brian Kelly, and I'm like, that is the worst thing you could possibly do right now. And I think they got it right. I mean, they waited and got their right guy.
West
I
Coast
think
Rick.
I think it was one of the best hires for what they were facing at this time in all of the hiring. I give it an A+ hire by Michigan. I am a huge Kyle Whittingham fan.
Same.
All he does is win. They were 10-2 this year. And I look at this, I guess the knock, maybe this is more what you were going with, which he's not a Michigan man. That's a famous statement. That's the only weird part about this, but I actually think he is a Michigan guy. He believes in running the football, physical defenses, tough teams. That's what Big Ten football has always been known for. I think he's going to fit like a glove there. I think he handled himself really well in the press conference. He's just a winner. I think this was a perfect hire for a man who's 66 years old. I kind of look at them as, this does not go well for schools when they get rid of somebody that I think that they just deemed he had been there too long. I think of Florida State and what they did with Bobby Bowden. Philip Fulmer was fired 11 months after he won the SEC East and had won a national title. I think Utah made a huge mistake. This was not a retirement there. Whittingham had made that clear. I think this is good days in Ann Arbor. And we got to remember, this isn't, yes, the scandal was so bad, and that what happened with Sharon Moore at the end, that wasn't the only scandal, as we know, with the Connor Stallions and all that. But Michigan's got
other
talent.
problems.
They've got Bryce Underwood, the number one player that came in. He's a phenom.
If they can keep him, right.
Still mad about that, by the way.
They can keep him. And a lot of that other talent, that's what Whittingham's going to have to do. But I think this is a good fit, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the maize and blue.
Yeah, me too. Press conference. Do you hate Ohio State? To be clear, do you hate Ohio State? I guess I do now. That's what he said.
Great.
It's a great answer. Great answer. Just kind of with a wry smile. Biff Poggi, who's been the interim coach and is, I guess, still currently the interim coach, has said 5 years of dysfunction. So he went back before Sharon Moore, and he clearly was saying with Jim Harbaugh, 5 years, at least 5 years of dysfunction.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. And I think the Michigan fans can all kind of see that now that Jim Harbaugh's tenure was not great, especially towards the end, despite the national title.
George, they don't care because they had 2 college football playoff appearances and they won the national title 2 years ago.
No, agreed. But what I'm saying
happy.
is that the program was spiraling downward internally, and then we have seen sort of the effects of that. Even though by the way, they were a pretty good team this year, right? They were not a terrible team last year coming off the national title, but obviously internally things were frazzled and disintegrating. I would say this: I think that 2 hires that maybe weren't on the tip of everybody's tongue, Matt Campbell to Penn State, and then Kyle Whittingham to Michigan, are home run hires. So the Whittingham one is a little harder for me to say that just because of his age, but I think it's a great hire. So, all right, we need to go ahead and let's. You know what? But I don't want to go the second half. Let's just do this real quick because we've talked a long time today about college football. As our listeners listen, it is either about to be New Year's or the New Year is coming. And I just want to encourage everybody and just get y'all's thoughts on this because I know, Jonathan, you guys tried something last year, started something as a family. But one of the things I'm asking our folks at our church to do with me is to read the Bible through in 2026. And so I want to encourage you, Christ follower or not, would you dive into the Bible in 2020? And there are some ways you can do that in different ways, and you don't have to read through it in a year. I think there's a tremendous benefit to doing that. But here's my suggestion. Read a psalm a day, or maybe 5 psalms a day. And if you do that, if you'll read 5 psalms a day, and then each month you'll read through the psalms, but get into the psalms every day. And then find a Bible reading plan. And I actually have a thought on one. And I know, Todd, you've got some thoughts too. Find a good Bible reading plan and start. And you can read a chunk in the Old Testament and a chunk in the New Testament each day. And you'll get through the Bible in a year. And you get a picture, you get a big picture look at the Bible. You get an overview look at God's plan to rescue humans, to bring them, reconcile them to himself so that we could be part of his family. And I just want to encourage you to do that. But Todd, I know you actually have a thought here that we ought to come up with. So let me just send it to you.
Just a thought. I echo Bible reading plan. I've done it every year for 21 years as a follower of Jesus. Read through the Bible in a year, whatever that plan is. Maybe I'm not real good at this part, but maybe we could come up with a gridiron and the gospel Bible reading plan for the year. All of our listeners, we could all dive in together and push each other in the off season a little bit through that. I cannot recommend that more. Is to read the Bible through in a year. And if it's daunting, do the New Testament in a year. If you've never done it before, maybe you're a casual listener, you like
absolutely
college football, do the New Testament, but pick a plan. We'll talk about that when we get off and maybe unveil that for the new year. And then secondly is this resolutions. What is it? 90-something% of them fail by February 1st, and I think that's because.
Because the gym gets empty again by like the 3rd week in January, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Preached yesterday on the final Sunday of the month at a great church, a Parkwood Baptist Church in Concord, North Carolina yesterday. And just reminding that church that the way we grow in the Christian life is to go back to the beginning and remember when God saved you. Remember what it was like the first time that you trusted Christ. Remember that first time. Maybe it was revival. Maybe it was just quietly in your own home. Maybe it was with a parent. Maybe it was a coach. Maybe it was a coach who shared the gospel with you. Remember what God's amazing grace did in your life and tap into that amazing power, because that same grace that saved us is the same one that sustains us and hopefully propels us in 2026. I love the new year. because it reminds me that all of this time is marked out by God. And even the new year and the new calendar year is marked out by him. And it's a greater chance to trust him more.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I know you guys have
Yeah.
done some things in your family over the last, like in 2025, you started something different.
Well, yeah, 24, we did the New Testament, like you were talking about with the kids. So it's, it's not just doing it for yourself, it's building up that next generation too in your home. And we use the Foundations F260 Robbie Gallaty's plan. So if you just go and Google Foundations F260 reading plan, it just takes you right through the New Testament. It's a 5-day, I think 5-day reading plan through the New Testament in a year. That's an easy on ramp. And then that was 24 and 25. We did the Bible recap. If you want to do the full Bible, the Bible recap, Tara Lee Cobble, good resource out there. There's a kids Devo as well. We're finishing up Revelation in a couple days. So we just, recording this, and we just started Revelation last night. And that's 2 years in a row that we've done like actual, like systematic Bible reading with the kids. We've always done like Devos and stuff like that. But now it's like, it's just kind of ingrained, and we're doing Bible reading. We do it every night. The kids know, and it's just part of our routine.
And it's
And
been, and
it's
what,
great.
has it been, how has it been received? How's it worked out?
You don't have the option to receive it here. They're my
He's a
kids.
dictator,
So
which is what
yeah,
parents are
just
supposed to be. Yeah.
mom and dad say, "Hey, we're doing this," and okay, and they do it. So, and it's taken, and I mean, it's been really good. Like I can't think of anything more rewarding than Bible reading. Like you're never gonna like go, I've read my Bible too much, or I wish I wasn't reading my Bible more. Like I mean, like that. Those should not come out of your mouth. Like it's never going to go away in vain. It's so yeah, I'm all in on that, and we've got stuff lined up for 26 and ready to rock and roll whenever that hits next week. So
I love it. Listen, if you are following Jesus, the way you follow him is to know more closely, is to know him better. The way you love him more is to know him better. And the way you get to know him better is through his word. Good teaching, all of those things go together, but on an individual basis, you get to know him better and love him more, which is what we are commanded to do as followers of Jesus. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. You get to know him better and love him more through his word. That's how God has revealed himself to us. And so let me encourage you guys, jump in there. And you know what? I use the 5-day Bible reading plan, just to put that out there. It's free on the internet. You can find it. I'd be happy to begin to sort of promote that using our various social media channels and just see how people are doing on that. That's what I use. It's not the only one. It's not even necessarily the best one. It's just one I like, because if you read through it, it's a chunk of the Old Testament, a chunk of the New Testament every day, except it's 5 days a week, which means you can catch up because life happens and sometimes we don't do it. But I promise you, you will not regret reading more of God's word more often and more deeply. And so my prayer for all of us and all of our listeners this year is that we know God better, love him more, and there's how you do it. Get deeper into his word. So guys, man, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining me on a Monday morning. If you guys have questions about football, but about faith, email us at gridirongospelpod@gmail.com, gridirongospelpod@gmail.com. We want to talk with you about our faith in Christ. Reach out on Twitter at George Schroeder, at Todd Unzicker, or Jonathan, it's at Jonathan _ Howe, Howe. And we still don't know how, but that's how you can reach him. So also, by the way, if you haven't already, you can find us on YouTube. It might be the one time you try it. Just search for Gridiron and the Gospel. I know most of you guys are listening to us on your favorite podcasting app. Do us a
Like
favor,
and
be sure to
subscribe.
rate and yeah, like it and subscribe. That really helps us out a lot. And hey, tune in here in a few days. Just be watching. We'll be recapping the quarters and getting ready for the semifinals. So tune in, I guess, next week for more Gridiron and the Gospel, a faith in college football podcast.